"We've lost 32 star systems in 2 years," Admiral Zorn declared gravely. "At this rate, the void will consume our core worlds in 3 months." The Alien War Council fell silent. The once mighty Galactic Confederacy, comprised of 17 advanced species that had spent millennia building their world, was on the brink of extinction. A holographic image showed their territory in blue, rapidly shrinking against a red backdrop that stretched across the void. "The void has overrun the rail system," he said, his voice shaking with age and fatigue. "That means the loss of 32 systems in just 2 years. General Bex, a centurion with silvery metallic skin that once shone with pride, now looked dull in the floodlights. "In our last attack, we lost 5 capital ships and destroyed no enemy. They adapt too quickly. We can't catch them off guard anymore." The Galactic Confederacy was the pride of the sector. 17 alien species, working in harmony. They built breathtaking cities on 1,000 worlds. They created art that moved people to tears and shared medicines that saved billions, but they never prepared for real war. "The simulations give us 3 months before they reach the core worlds," said Leary, the small green Tauren who controlled the combat systems. Her large eyes blinked rapidly, clearly worried. "We've run the calculations 10,000 times. We always lose, Admiral." Cell looked at her 4-fingered hands, the skin wrinkled and slate-gray with age. She had hoped to die peacefully someday. Now that seemed impossible. "Perhaps we should discuss surrender terms," Ambassador Prell suggested, his eye stalks drooping in defeat. "Surrender." General Bex laughed humorlessly. "The Void takes no prisoners, it consumes all." The Void Collective was unlike them. Not so many minds, but a single one, controlling billions of bodies. They didn't want to rule them, they wanted to consume them. Their planets, their resources, they would leave nothing behind. "Then we will die with honor," said the commander, a son of the Drith warriors. Even she sounded exhausted, her scaly skin losing its usual luster. Suddenly, the door to the briefing room opened. A young officer ran in, breathing heavily, his uniform rumpled, his eyes wide. "Admiral, we have received a message. An unknown vessel has entered our space. More Void explorers." Admiral Selford asked wearily. "No, sir. They say they come from a planet called Earth. It is not on our star charts." The council members exchanged confused glances. "A new species. They're broadcasting on all frequencies now, sir. They say they've been watching our war." The officer swallowed. "They say they want to help." "Help." General Bex snorted. "What could an unknown species offer us that would make a difference now?" The young officer swallowed again. "They say they're soldiers, sir, that their entire history is war. They've fought each other for thousands of years while we built peace. They say they've been watching our war and know how to win it." The council members exchanged astonished glances. A species whose entire history is war, it sounded incredible and terrifying. "Bring them into line," Admiral Zorn ordered. The star chart vanished. A human face appeared, pink skin, hair on top of her head, and predatory eyes staring straight ahead. It was Captain Elena Reeves, wearing a uniform emblazoned with symbols like battle decorations. "This is Captain Reeves from Earth," she said in a cold, confident voice. "Your enemies adapt their tactics because you are predictable. You fight by the rules, we do not. And that's exactly what you need now." For the first time in months, Admiral Selford felt his heart beat faster, faster. The human ship docked at the Confederate station. It was small and ugly compared to their graceful vessels, its hull battered and repaired. It bore the marks of countless battles. Captain Elena Reeves entered the council chamber with 4 others. They wore simple dark uniforms with small, colorful patches. They carried no weapons, but they moved like predators, alert and ready for battle. The council members stared at them, never having seen such creatures before. "They're smaller than I imagined," Admiral Zorn said. Captain Ribs smiled, but her gaze remained cold. Size isn't everything, Admiral. Why help us? General Bex asked. What do you want in return? We need allies, Ribs replied bluntly. Earth is just a planet. We've only just arrived among the stars. The galaxy is a vast place, and we'd rather have friends than enemies. And you think you can defeat an enemy we couldn't defeat? Ambassador Prell asked, his eye stalks twitching suspiciously. We have far more advanced technology than you. Technology isn't your problem, another man, a tall, dark-skinned man, interrupted. Your problem is how you understand war. Reeves nodded. This is Major Cruz, my second-in-command. He's right. We've studied your battles against the Void. You fight like engineers, logically, predictably, by the rules. How do humans fight? Commander Son of Draemel asked. Reeves replied, like survivors. We deceive, we mislead, we do whatever it takes to win. The council members exchanged worried glances. They've been fighting the Void for 2 years, Reeves continued. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. While you were building your perfect society, we were perfecting the art of killing. Prove it, General Beck said. Show us what humans are capable of. Admiral Selford raised his hand. A training arena. We can run combat simulations. There, an hour later, the council watched as 5 human soldiers entered the virtual battlefield. They faced holographic versions of the Confederacy's finest fighters and computer models of Void warriors. What happened next astounded everyone present. The humans fought unlike any other race they had seen before. They followed no patterns or rules. One feigned injury to lure the enemy. Another used the environment as a weapon, causing a cave-in that buried several opponents. They communicated with small gestures and moved as a single unit, though each fought in their own way. Most striking was their speed. Although their bodies appeared normal, their reactions were incredibly fast. The aliens would later discover that this was a result of what humans called adrenaline, a substance their bodies produced in dangerous situations. When the simulation ended, all the enemies were defeated. The humans suffered minor injuries but were still standing. How did they move so fast? Asked Lee, Torin's computer expert. Their muscles shouldn't allow them to reach such speeds. Major Cruz smiled. When humans are afraid or angry, they become stronger. It's a gift of evolution. They fight without honor, Commander Song noted. We fight to win, Captain Ribs corrected. The Void cares nothing for honor, nor does it care for extinction. Admiral Selford rose slowly. For the first time in months, he felt something like hope. The Council will vote now, he announced. We accept Earth's aid. The vote was unanimous. They had no other choice. The war was lost unless these ruthless human soldiers could turn the tide. As Captain Reeves left the room, Admiral Selford wondered if they had just made a deal with another kind of monster. Oh, you're not fighting. General Bex shouted, slamming his silver fist down on the table. These plans violate every single one of our military rules. Major Cruz looked at him calmly. That's precisely why they're going to work. The Void knows its rules, too. It's already learned how to fight. 3 days had passed since the humans' arrival. They were now in the command center of the next station, the last major Confederate shipyard. Captain Reeves assumed command, much to the dismay of some of the alien officers. A battle plan covering the station and surrounding space was displayed on a large observation table. The human plan bore no resemblance to anything the Confederacy would have done. You intend to use our civilian transport ships as bait? Admiral Zorn asked. They lack powerful weapons or shields. Exactly, Reeves said. The Void will not see them as a threat, but we will hide our best fighters within them when the Void is close enough. He made a gesture mimicking an explosion. The Dreadnought commander studied the plan. Unlike the others, she seemed interested. Are you prepared to sacrifice the outer defensive ring? Those are our strongest positions, and the most obvious, Major Cruz replied. The Void will expend considerable time and energy destroying them. Meanwhile, we will attack from the rear. A tall, thin alien with blue feathers spoke. His name was Thel. He was a diplomat, not a soldier. This is outrageous. They plan to set traps, feign a retreat, and use civilians as human shields. No civilians will be harmed, Reef said firmly. But the Void must believe it can break through. That's the point, the deception. Deception is dishonest, Thel Reeves insisted. He laughed, but without a trace of humor. We fight not for honor, but for survival. Admiral Selford watched the humans carefully. They were so unlike any species I had ever known. They seemed fragile, without claws or armor. And yet there was something dangerous about them. Perhaps their eyes were the eyes of hunters. Your method did not work, Cruz told those present. You've been losing ground for 2 years. You fight like engineers solving equations. We fight like predators hunting their prey. Silence fell over the room. Even General Bex couldn't dispute that truth. Their fighting style was fraying. Tell me something, Admiral Selford, Reefs finally said. If we follow their plan and win this battle, what next? The Void is vast, we can't fool them forever. Captain Reefs nodded. You're right. So this is only the beginning. More ships are arriving with men, 3,000 of our best soldiers. We've also sent messages to Earth requesting the creation of special forces. Only 3,000, asked Leary, Torrens' computer expert. There are millions of them in the Void. Quality over quantity, Cruz said with a slight smile. One special forces soldier is worth 100 regular soldiers. And what makes them so special? Commander Sun asked curiously. Rips and Cruz exchanged glances, as if deciding how much to reveal. They're trained to think like the enemy, Rips finally said, to become the enemy in their minds, to discover weaknesses no one else sees. A chill ran through the room. The aliens couldn't imagine wanting to think like the Void. Then Admiral Rips turned to Selford. We have their authorization to execute the plan. The old Arcturian looked back at the tactical display. The human plan was risky, deceptive, and contrary to everything the Confederacy believed about how war should be fought, but it was also their only hope. Authorization granted, he said quietly. May all the stars be with us. They're approaching, Lyoso Viendo said, quickly glancing at the control panel. Void ships in the system, more than we expected. Admiral Zorn looked at the screen. Hundreds of enemy ships were approaching the nearest station. The largest Void fleet they had ever seen. Do they know this is our last great shipyard? He asked quietly. They want to end the war today. Captain Ribbs remained calm in the command center. Okay, let them come. The alien officers looked at her in amazement. Even after days of working with humans, they still couldn't understand how these strange creatures could face death with such calm. Begin evacuation procedures, Ribbs ordered. Make it obvious. I want the Void to see our people flee in terror. But our people are truly afraid, Commander Song said. Major Cruz smiled. Then they'll put on a very convincing show. The plan was put into action. Transport ships left the station, transmitting distress signals. The outer defensive ring opened fire, but deliberately missed most of their targets. To the Void, it looked like a mixture of panic and poor aim. The Void ships moved exactly as Revivs had predicted. They ignored the fleeing transports and attacked the defensive ring with all their might. They took the bait, said Cruz, watching the tactical display. Time for Phase 2. Hidden among the asteroids near the approaching station, the human ships waited silently. They were small but deadly, equipped with specialized technology the Confederacy had never used in combat. Now, Ribbs ordered. The human ships activated their electronic warfare systems. The Void fleet suddenly lost contact with part of its hive mind. Confusion spread through their ranks as individual ships failed to coordinate their actions. Phase 3, Ribs continued, his voice firm. The transport ships, which had previously retreated, now turned around. From within, Confederate houses emerged, their energy signatures hidden until then. They attacked the confused Void ships from behind. At the same time, the humans detonated hidden charges planted in the Minovendon asteroid field. The explosions created a cloud of radioactive debris that blinded the Void ship sensors. They can't see, they can't coordinate. Now attack them with everything you've got, ordered Cruz. The Confederate fleet, hidden on the far side of Proxima's moon, entered the fray. They attacked the Void ship's communication nodes, the components that connected them to the hive mind. On the command center screen, the battle looked like beautiful chaos. The Void ships moved erratically, some even mistakenly firing on their own ships. For the first time, the hive mind experienced something new. Fear. They're retreating, Leary announced, disbelief in her voice. The Void is truly retreating. Shouts of joy erupted in the command center. The alien officers hugged each other, some wept with joy. It was their first victory in 2 years. Admiral Selthorne wasn't celebrating. He watched Captain Reeves and Major Cruz, who were already discussing the next battle. They did it, he said quietly. They defeated them. Ribs looked at him with his cold, predatory eyes. No, Admiral, we wounded them, we scared them. This is only the beginning. She pointed to the tactical demonstration. The Void has never faced an enemy who behaved dishonestly. They don't know how to deal with it, and they haven't seen what humans are truly capable of, Cruz added. Admiral Selthorne felt a chill, despite the victory. She wondered what these implacable humans would do next, and whether the galaxy would ever be the same. A brief pause in the broadcast. Before we continue this galactic journey, if you enjoy this unique sci-fi experience, subscribe to the channel now and, most importantly, hit the notification bell. This way, the YouTube algorithm will ensure you don't miss the next videos with the most mind-blowing sci-fi stories you won't find anywhere else. Now, back to our story. 2 weeks later, the galaxy was abuzz with news. 3 more star systems had been liberated, and the Void forces were retreating on several fronts. But as Captain Revive studied the battle reports, she noticed something disturbing. The Void was adapting faster than expected. The humans' tactics were becoming bolder with each encounter. They weren't just fighting the Void, they were terrorizing it. Human scientists were studying the captured Void species, looking for new ways to disrupt its communications. Confederate engineers, initially resistant to human ideas, began developing weapons specifically designed to sow chaos among the Void. But tensions were mounting. Many alien leaders, especially diplomats like Ambassador Thel, were uneasy with human methods. They use psychological warfare, Thel complained to Admiral Selford. They don't just kill the enemy, they make them suffer first. That's not our way. Our way is losing, the Admiral replied simply. Meanwhile, in a high-security lab on a nearby station, Dr. Sarah Chen, a leading human scientist, had made a discovery. She was studying the neural pathways connecting individual Void beings to their hive mind. Look at this, she said to Captain Reeves, showing him a microscopic image. Each Void entity has a specialized organ that receives and transmits thoughts to the collective. If we could disrupt its functioning, we could isolate them from the hive mind. Reeves finished. Return the individuals. Dr. Chen nodded. Exactly. I'm developing a virus that attacks only this organ. It won't kill them, it will simply sever the connection. What happens to a Void creature separated from the hive? We don't know, Dr. Chen admitted. No one has ever seen one function as an individual. It could be traumatic for them. Captain Reeves considered. How long do you need to prepare it? A human transport ship cut through the clouds of planet Vega. Unlike the previous ones, this one was large and new. A black symbol resembling a skull was painted on its side. Colonel Marcus Bandal stepped onto the landing pad, where Captain Reefs and Admiral Selford awaited him. He was tall, even for a human, with a shaved head and a scar running down one side of his face. Behind him walked 20 soldiers in black uniforms. "Welcome to the next post, Colonel," Captain Ribs greeted him. Admiral Selthorne watched the new arrivals closely. "Are these the special forces you requested?" "Yes, sir," Colonel Vandal replied. His voice was calm but tense. "We call ourselves the Voidwalkers. We specialize in psychological warfare." The Admiral wasn't quite sure what that meant, but something in Vandal's gaze made him stop asking. Later, in the command post, Major Cruz showed Colonel Vandal a new briefing. "The hive mind is evolving," Cruz explained. "They're now creating multiple control nodes instead of just one. They're learning." Vandal nodded. "So we need to hit them harder, not just physically, but mentally as well." "What do you mean?" the unsuspecting Major asked. "Admiral. The Void is a single mind controlling many bodies," Vandal explained. "That's its strength, but also its weakness. When parts of that mind are isolated, they experience something akin to trauma. And you wish to use that trauma as a weapon?" Admiral Selford asked, clearly uneasy at the idea. "Exactly," Vandal replied. "My team will infiltrate Void territory. We will attack their communications centers, but not to destroy them entirely. We will damage them in a way that will have the greatest psychological impact. Perhaps." That night, Ambassador Telvo called an emergency meeting of the Confederation Council. His blue feathers flared with excitement. "These people are changing us," he warned. "Their methods, their mindset. It's infecting our commanders. Yesterday, I heard General Beck suggest using captured Void entities as bait. That's not who we are." Several council members nodded in agreement. "Agreed." Others looked uncertain. "We were losing the war," said Commander Sun Drays. "She had become one of humanity's greatest defenders. We were on the brink of extinction. I would rather die with my principles intact, Ambassador." The debate grew heated. The Confederacy was divided, survival at all costs or preserving their identity, even if it meant defeat. Meanwhile, Colonel Vandal's disruptors prepared for their first mission. They studied the Void's behavior patterns, their methods of communication and movement. They practiced simulations, practicing silent movement across territory. The enemy. Dr. Chen continued working on the virus. The first tests showed promising results. Under controlled conditions, she could sever the Void entity's connection to others, but the consequences were alarming. Isolated creatures became unpredictable, some aggressive, others catatonic. "It's as if they don't know how to exist as individuals," she told Captain Reefs. "They've never had to think for themselves. Will they learn that?" Reefs asked. "Perhaps over time," Dr. Chen doubted. "But our goal is to teach the enemy to be individuals." Captain Reefs looked out the viewport at the test subjects. "Our goal is to win the war, Doctor." But she paused thoughtfully. "Perhaps there is more than one way to win." As the weeks passed, the war changed. The Void retreated from more and more systems, but adapted to human tactics faster than expected. Their ships began using electronic countermeasures to human technology. Their formations became less predictable. "They learn from us," Cruz remarked during a strategy meeting on Mindestin. "Just as we learn from them." Colonel Vandal's destructors had successfully completed their first 3 missions. They infiltrated Void-controlled systems, sabotaged communications nodes, and vanished before the enemy could react. Reports spoke of disarray among the Void forces, who sometimes attacked each other in the confusion. But victories had come at a high price. Human soldiers were dying in battle. Confederate worlds were being devastated by Void attacks. What troubled Admiral Selford most was that his own commanders were beginning to display the same brutality as the humans. After one particularly brutal battle, where Confederate forces employed tactics that would have been unthinkable just a few months ago, Selford approached Captain Rips in his private quarters. "We are winning," he admitted. "But I wonder, who are we becoming in the process?" Rips looked him straight in the eye. "War changes everyone, Admiral, even us." "Us. That's what scares me," he replied. "When this is all over, if we survive, we will recognize each other." The great council chamber filled with shouts. Representatives from the 17 species of the Confederacy argued among themselves while Admiral Selford tried to restore order. "The humans have gone too far," shouted Ambassador T, his blue feathers billowing with rage. "They deployed hunter drones in the Antar system without authorization. Civilian areas were affected." Major Cruz stood calmly before the council. "The drones attacked. Void infiltrators. We saved millions of lives." "At what cost?" asked the Centurion representative. 23 civilians were killed. "And if we had done nothing," Cruz replied, "this planet would already be destroyed. The Void takes no prisoners." The discussion continued. 3 months later, with the participation of humans, the war had changed radically. The Confederacy had retaken 7 star systems, but the cost concerned many. Captain Wraiths entered the room, interrupting the discussion. Her uniform was dirty, and she looked tired. She had just returned from the front. "While you argue," she said loudly, "the Void is adapting. They are developing new defenses against our tactics. We need to intensify our efforts." "Intensify?" Ambassador Tell looked at her with horror. "They've already crossed all our ethical boundaries." "Perhaps that's why we're winning," Wraiths replied bluntly. Then a new voice spoke up. Mara, a young diplomat from one of the outer worlds. "Perhaps we should consider negotiating with the Void now that we've demonstrated our strength." "Perhaps," said the human officers, who looked at her as if she just suggested they eat their own children. "Negotiate." Major Cruz shook his head in disbelief. "They don't come to talk, they come to devour. The only language they understand is force." The council was split into factions. Some supported the humans and their methods. Others wanted a more peaceful solution, now that they had achieved some success. Admiral Selford watched with growing alarm. The alliance was beginning to disintegrate just when it needed unity most. The situation came to a head 3 days later. Colonel Vandal's destructors carried out a daring mission behind enemy lines. They destroyed a massive void incubator, killing millions of unborn beings. But in doing so, they damaged an ancient temple on the planet Kalos, a sacred site for many species in the Confederacy for millennia. Protests erupted on several allied worlds, directed not against the Void, but against humans. In his private quarters in the moment, Admiral Selford reviewed reports of the growing discontent. Captain Reefs, as always, stood before him, showing no remorse. "You asked for ruthlessness," she said. "That's what ruthlessness means." "I asked for help," the Admiral corrected. "Not for you to destroy everything we believe in. Faith will not save you from extinction." The old Arcturian sighed deeply. "Perhaps not, but what's the point of surviving if we become what we hate? I have no answer to that." That same night, Admiral Selford made a difficult decision. He would continue to support the human military campaign, after all, they were winning. But he also secretly ordered a contingency plan against their new allies, just in case. At the same time, intelligence officers reported alarming news. The Void was radically changing its tactics. Intercepted communications indicated they were preparing something monumental, a devastating counterattack, the likes of which had never been seen before. The true test of the human Confederate alliance was about to begin. "Emergency meeting," read the message that woke Admiral Selford. "Security breach." When he arrived at the command center, Captain Reeves was already there, a serious expression on her face. The screen displayed chaos in 3 different star systems. The Void has infiltrated our territories, she explained, not on ships, but on spies. Impossible, said General